Hi. So I intern at Multnomah Wraparound, and I work with youth and families who are involved in one or more systems of care or at risk of um, falling through the cracks. They could be in mental health. They could have a developmental disability. They could be involved with juvenile justice. They could be in foster care. There is a crisis right now, and there is practice level work groups that meet once a month, and the intention is to bring forth barriers from any of the systems of care, having representatives from each of those systems present to submit a barrier. That barrier gets brought to the next level up. The next level up from the practice work group is the regional advisory practice level work group. That also meets once a month. And then above that is more of like a mid-level managers meeting, and that meets once every other month. So that barrier submission starts at the ground level, gets brought up to each level, and then it eventually ends up at the legislative advisory level. And then they bring that barrier process back down. And the barriers that I've seen that have been brought back down, they ask for more data. And they want stories of experiences. They want that voice. I don't see a lot of parents and I don't see a lot of youth at the practice level work group. I don't know how to gain interest in doing that, but I have seen an empowerment process happen when you can get parents together and they see that they are not isolated. When they start to share their experiences, something pretty empowering starts to happen. And if there could be a way to get the youth and family together in one place, this would be a powerful way to start that barrier process. And one of the icebreakers that I would like to start out with is a yarn toss. And this activity actually takes like a half hour. So you start out with a ball of yarn, and you start to share your story, your experiences, and then someone across the room, as soon as someone has something in common, they say, "Me too." And then that person talking passes the ball of yarn, and you can end up holding that yarn and several times, and then when it's done when it's complete, it's a web that it spans a circle of people spread out. And if there's a lot of similarities, then that web is pretty tight. And to demonstrate that web, you can throw a beach ball on top of that. And if there's a lot of similarities, and the web is very woven tight, very interconnected, throwing that beach ball on top shows that through collaboration and unity that we can navigate these systems of care. And to cement this process, then each person cuts out a piece of that web and ties a string on their neighbor's wrist. And that is a reminder of that interconnection piece. It might be appropriate to spend a lot of time doing this type of activity to get that sense of unity. And then once people start to feel safe, then the next activity that I would like to introduce is just to break off into smaller groups of systems of care. So somebody who might be involved in the juvenile justice system, someone might be involved in developmental disabilities, somebody might be in the behavioral health side, someone might be in the school system, somebody might be involved in foster care. So people just kind of break off into groups evenly spread out, and then a card can be read about a scenario that might be pretty common for youth and families encountering those systems of care. And then after 15 or 20 minutes of discussing, and that group has kind of a solid idea of like what barriers that they've encountered within those systems of care. And then they reconvene as a large group, and the facilitator asks a representative to speak about what they found to be a common barrier. And as they start to write this down on the board, there start to be a pattern. And then people within each of the systems might see that interconnection of everyone and the need that all their voices together do count. And maybe during this meeting or our next meeting, you can start to write out a barrier submission form so that they can see what that process looks like. And if somebody would like to go to the practice level work group, maybe having a handful of people like, we're going to present this barrier next month. Which would a group of you like to come to this? And there usually is a stipend for youth and families. They have childcare, they have food. So seeing the process from the ground level and getting the hard data from that from the youth, and then I think is a more potent way to get that data. And it would be interesting to see that process from the below the practice level work group, and then bringing to the practice level work group, and then to the regional advisory group, and seeing where that goes with legislation. And see, I've found that hearing the voices, there's been parents who've shared their experience, and usually a strong emotional tone to it has a lot more impact than someone who's just a representative of a system of care and saying, yeah, this and this, I'm a professional, so I'm a little bit detached. Getting that emotional impact piece might have more weight with bringing forth a barrier. Thank you for your time.